Now the control rods they used at the Chernobyl reactor were kind of odd. The main neutron absorption part was sort of in the middle of the rod, but about a good portion of the tip at the end of it didn't do any neutron absorption as it first went into the water. In fact, it was mostly made of a graphite, so it acted even more so as a moderator, as opposed to absorbing the neutrons. It was just slowing them down and helping the reaction take place faster. So as they first started to put the control rods in, it actually sped up the reaction even more. It got to the point where the reaction was getting so intense that the fuel rods themselves started breaking. And as they broke, they got into the pads of the control rods, and the control rods were only able to go in about a third of the way. And they couldn't get them in any further because the fuel rods had already shattered and blocked the path. So at that point, it was run away. There was nothing they could do to stop it.
I missed a point. Is the water pump running, or had they turned it on?
They turned it on. It took a little while for the generators to kick in. That was sort of the whole purpose of the test, to see if the generators would kick in and have the pump turn. So the pumps did start turning again, but it was too late.
What was it already for?
Wasn't there a fire?
Yeah, what happened as the pressure built up in here, because they couldn't slow down the reaction, as the steam accumulated, it blew the lid off of the reactor.
Yeah.
When that happened, in a normal, you can see this containment structure around here. This is what a normal nuclear reactor would have. For example, in 3 Mile Island, when there was the accident, the containment structure was something that kept the whole accident there at 3 Mile Island from becoming a big issue in terms of the population surrounding the plant. In Chernobyl, in order to cut costs, certainly the government wasn't doing too well financially at that point. There wasn't much of a containment structure around here. It was sort of similar to what we have here in this room, really, around the reactor.
At 3 Mile Island, the reactor vessel didn't rupture. Didn't rupture.
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah.
So it was even more contained, but there would have been that containment structure in case of such an emergency. Chernobyl didn't have that, and so once the lid blew off, you had radioactivity plus oxygen. Then, as it hit inside here, the graphite caught on fire because of the heat level and the sudden supply of oxygen there. So fire started on top of all of it. And I think we pretty much know the rest of what happened. They had they realized it was an emergency. Although in lots of areas in the plant, they didn't know that there was a big emergency going on because they were in the middle of a test, and so they had already shut down a lot of the safety alarm measures because they were going to be pushing it to its limit to see how the emergency kick-in system would work. And their radiation detectors that they had only went up to a certain level, and once you got to that point, it just said that the amount of radiation right now is greater than X. And in different parts of the plant, the levels of radiation were up to 1,000 times more than what their maximum amount said. So they really, a lot of them in the plant didn't know that there was even reason to be worried until a few hours after this occurred. The town nearby, Pripyat, which is just a couple kilometers away, where most of the main workers live with their families, they weren't evacuated until about 24 hours after the accident occurred. It was Soviet secrecy plus trying to figure out what they're going to do, and they sent in firefighters. They used their army to go in and do a lot of the cleanup to build the sarcophagus over the reactor. So that's essentially what occurred with. You can actually read a lot of the details. Since I was in Ukraine this last summer, it's only been the past few months, Wikipedia is updated, and there's a lot of fantastic information. If you want to read more about it, the Chernobyl disaster, lots of details have been put in there. I was actually really amazed. It's probably the best collection of information on what occurred at the accident that I've been able to find in there. After the accident, the radioactivity actually it was airborne thanks to the fire, and there were winds kind of going northwesterly from the power plant. This is the location of the power plant. This is the town of Pripyat, and this is a 30-kilometer radius circle that they decided to end up evacuating. And this is what's known as the forbidden zone now. Nobody is technically allowed to live there, although in actuality there are plenty of people who are senior citizens who their parents and their parents and their parents all, lived within that area, and they didn't want to leave it. And the government at this point, as long as they're not, children or young, they'll just kind of let them live there if they're that set on it.
What's the radius of the forbidden zone?
It's a 30-kilometer radius.
Kiev, is Kiev,
Kiev doesn't show on this one, but there's a zoomed out version. There's the 30-kilometer radius. This is Kiev right here. This is the border between Ukraine and Belarus, and then here's Poland, there's Warsaw. As you can see, this was really close to the border with Belarus, and since the winds were going north-northwest, really the place that got it the worst was right up here in Belarus.
You think that they designed the forbidden area to take into consideration the effect of the wind?
You'd think that, yeah. I think this was just a knee-jerk reaction that the Soviets decided to stick with. In reality, they monitored all the different areas in the countryside where the highest radioactivity levels were. Unfortunately, I don't have that graph with me. I know the RCRM has it because they're the ones who do the readings on a regular basis to keep updating it. But the majority of the radiation really kind of extended through here. There are parts in here that don't have nearly as much radiation as areas through here and here, but they just had to make a quick decision and arbitrarily say, okay, this much space is going to be used. Really, through a lot of this talk, you'll get to see how politics and stuff like that comes into play with the science as well. A lot of these decisions are the political decisions. Interestingly enough as well, within the 30-kilometer zone, they're building a new safe confinement for the sarcophagus, because over time, first of all, they threw the sarcophagus up really fast. So there wasn't a lot of quality work put into it. Their main goal was just getting it covered. As a result, over time, it's been really weathered. It's looking sort of deteriorated, and they're worried they don't want it to collapse and just have a whole bunch more radioactivity come shooting out from the collapse. So they're building a new confinement to put over the top of it.
The radioactivity in the reactor must have dropped a lot since then.
I'm sure
it
it
down
has.
to 1%?
Well, it depends. There are actually a few different people who have done calculations. One person was probably what you're referring to, said that probably somewhere in the 90s percentile of the radiation escaped during the fire and the accident, so when they enclosed it there wasn't really much of it all left. Other calculations by other people have said that it's maybe only 50% of the radioactivity escaped during the time of the accident before they got the sarcophagus up. And so that's sort of up for debate. There's no real concrete answers as far as that goes, but
no, but it's been
the amount of
years,
time.
So.
Yeah, all of the short-lived radioisotopes will be gone, but you still have
strontium-90 and a few other things.
Yeah, you'll still have some other things in there that will still could
They
be an
don't.
issue.
They don't probe it at all
Inside the reactor
to see
or
how much.
sarcophagus? I think they've done.
I think sent in some robots.
I think they have done some of that. I am not sure what the results have been of that, or if they've made any conclusions. At the very least, if they have made conclusions on it, they haven't publicized it very well at all.
No, but the calculations are pretty reliable. People shut down, look at nuclear waste all the time. You know how it decays. It's sort of a one over time
Yeah.
There have
decay.
been documentaries that have suggested that there
There's
were places where
million
humans
activities.
dared not go for any of the time, and they still look very hot in certain areas.
Yeah, I think 1% of a nuclear reactor is still pretty hot.
I've worked with experience with locals. So terrible.
Yeah, I think the biggest question was just how much of the radioactivity was actually released into the environment at the time of the accident. Because then that'll determine how much radioactivity is still inside, obviously.
Well, not really, because a lot of that would be iodine, and that's all gone anyway. So a lot of the radioactive, the deaths of the children are all due
How
to
about
radioactive
plutonium?
iodine. That's
I mean,
long
some
gone.
plutonium that's
Yeah, there's
very
plutonium and uranium are still really big
Very
issues,
long
especially for the people who are going and working on this new safe confinement. They're supposed to wear these little masks all the time in
Yeah.
case they breathe in,
Yeah.
dust that is rich in uranium, plutonium. And there are other like radioactive cesium-137 is still an issue.